Well, good morning, folks. This is going to be a fantastic Leading Your Best Life because I'm actually dealing with a yoga legend, Nicky Knoff. I'm just going to read from the brochure here. An incredible and unique chance because Andrea, my yoga instructor here in Perth, has brought Nicky to Perth, and it's a big weekend this weekend in Perth, so it's a great opportunity to talk to Nicky and hear about her journey and her philosophy around yoga. But let me just do this. A chance to learn from a master yoga teacher with over 54 years of experience in both practicing and teaching yoga, as well as more than 30 years of leading teacher training programs. So, Nicky, welcome to the Leading Your Best Life podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Well, Andrea said, Lee, you must interview Nicky if she's in town. If you're serious about leading your best life. Nicky spent all this time helping thousands of people lead their best lives. So before we get into what you're doing this weekend and all the things you do now, let's talk a bit about your journey. And I've got to say, I saw a fantastic YouTube video that's on your website today about your background. So it's absolutely stunning, riveting, enthralling. So tell me your journey. Tell us a little about your journey. We'll dig deeper as it goes on. But tell us, where has Nicky Knoff come from?
Well, I was born in Indonesia. In those days, it was called Batavia, but now it's called Jakarta in Java. My father was Dutch and my mother was English. So I was brought up trilingual, really, which makes the unfortunate thing happen that whatever I speak, I seem to have an accent.
There's an accent there, all right, but you go back, you were born before the Second World War, and so you guys were affected quite directly by the Second World War. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, my mother and my brother and I were interned in women's and children's camps. We would be moved from time to time, usually at midnight, walking through the jungle or catching a train in the dark and walking more in the jungle. My father was on the Burma Railway, but we managed to be alive at the end of the war, so we were very lucky as a family.
Very lucky. I remember you saying, well, your father, to survive working on the Burma Railway, was it 3 or 4 years? Just incredible. He must be tough just to do that, let alone you guys in the camp. I heard you talking about lack of food and sucking your thumb and eating banana skins. And as you said, some of the people who tried to escape, as it worked out, to get out of Batavia at the time, the Japanese torpedoed their ships, so they didn't make it. Is that right? So you, as you say, you're very lucky in that regard. And so from there, where did you go? And I suppose, how did this then lead eventually into yoga?
Well, actually, during the camp, my mother's best friend was Nettie Krefeld, a Dutch lady, and her son was with her. And many years afterwards, we were in Hong Kong and we were sent to boarding school in Australia. And I was sent to Geelong. And my brother was in Melbourne, in Box Hill, and he came home at Christmas time with a broad Australian accent at 12 and decided to forget his languages. And then my parents decided to send him to my brother's school, but it never took off. He's still got a broad Australian accent. And they couldn't understand him at first, and I used to have to translate for him and told them, just tune in. It's like Cockney. You'll eventually understand him, and they did.
Okay. So how did this all lead into your yoga? How were you introduced into yoga?
That was from the ages of 13 to 19. We were taken to boarding school because my mother thought it wasn't a good idea to bring us up with servants. They said, go to Australia where you'll run your own bath and make your own beds and learn to
Mhm.
work. So we used to go home at Christmas time, but whenever possible, I would take the train to Melbourne from Geelong and go and visit the Crayfelt family. And it was just a good chance to have a homey time and have some good food. and um, and Nettie was practicing yoga.
Mhm.
And she was telling me I should look into it. But when I looked at it, it looked like nothing was happening. I was in the hockey team and the baseball team and playing tennis and swimming and skiing. And if you had to move to do it, I did it. And the yoga didn't impress me at all at that stage. But years later, I was on my way from Tasmania to go and live in Japan, in Tokyo. So that was a strange thing for us to have to do. And on my way through, I phoned her. She was in hospital dying of virulent cancer. And her last words to me were, go and check out yoga. So when I was in Tokyo, I checked out the people who were teaching yoga. There was Bikram Chowdhury, who's still since got a really bad name, but he was only 26 then and teaching Ghosh's Yoga College of India. And then there was a pregnant Indian woman, and there was Orki, who had taken in a lot of Zen ideas, and also straight after yoga used to smoke a cigar and drink whiskey. So I thought, isn't who she learnt with. And I chose Bikram Chowdhury. And so he was teaching Ghosh's Yoga College of India. And since then, whenever I traveled, I always found Iyengar teachers, and that's really how I started. But when he started us, we had to be there for 3 months, every day, 6 days a week. One day the teacher needed a rest. And by the time you've done 3 months of yoga every day, it seems to stay with you. You keep
Yes.
practicing it.
Yes. Um, I think, again, my background's physical education. I actually went to Melbourne Uni to do physical education and then came to Perth to do a master's degree. So I've always been interested in people being fit and well. And certainly in my degrees, it was always about aerobic fitness. So yoga was always this thing in the fringes. And I always think, what's the value of that? How do you get aerobically fit there? And how do you even burn up any fat? I'd rather swim or run. And I just thought it was a nice stretching thing to do. And of course, having spent all the time with Andrea and learnt way more about it and the fascial sheath, and as you talk about on your website, which I'll get to at some point, that mind, body, breathing, energetic connection, there's way more to it, not the least of which, as Andrea had said in her podcast, this is somewhere between 4,000 and possibly even 40,000 years old. So there's a lot going on in yoga besides just stretching your hamstrings. And interesting, as you say, you had that sporting background, and literally it's Nettie's dying words to you were, do yoga.
Yes.
There's something quite almost metaphysical in that. Her last words to you, literally being so life transforming for you. So, of course, these days here you are having. That's what we'll do. We'll go to your website and talk about all of the things you're doing. Here it is. Here, Knoff Yoga, energize, elevate, evolve. And as you say, there's teacher training, there's classes, and you're these days. Besides, you're in Cairns, but you've Singapore, Sri Lanka. You're teaching all over the place, aren't you?
Yes. And those pictures with a lot of people is actually on the Gold Coast, the Gold Coast Yoga Center, where we have a student, Mark Tony, who's one of the main teachers there. He was a teacher trainee with us and lived with us for several years, went away for a few years, came back for another year. And so he's one of our success stories, Mark Tony of the Gold Coast.
Fantastic, fantastic. I was looking at your blog this morning, and I can see here's some history here. I assume that's you, and that's your
Yes, that's
husband,
James.
partner, James.
James, my husband, yes.
And of course, in one of these, I think this was the one I was looking at around hip flexibility, but it then led on to some other marvelous things that you say here. And I think you mentioned about Chowdhury telling you to, where was it, 6 days a week, 3 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, the language that Andrea and other yoga people do in terms of daily practice, the whole concept of, practicing daily. And you make the point, you can do it once a week, but it's nowhere near the same as daily practice. And so for Chowdhury to actually say, you want to play the game with us, we actually talk about this. We call it the hard, easy principle, where if you're going to play the game with me, you have to do 6 days a week for 3 months or don't come play. Well, you're making a pretty significant commitment at that point. But as you say, over 90 days, you're really rewiring the mind, body, spirit at that point. Are you able to make that request of people these days when you're working with them?
I can request it, but whether they do it or not, it definitely makes a difference when they practice. The ones who do, we have different levels: discovery, foundation, intermediate, advanced, and masters. Well, in 54 years, we've only had probably about might be 14 people go through to masters, and they're the ones who practice every day. They can, what we do in discovery sets the foundation for foundation, etc., etc. So everyone can do all the postures, but as long as they get on the mat and practice. And really, it can be cardiovascular because we do things like tic-tacs, handstands, drop overs, back onto your feet and back onto your hands. So there's quite a bit of cardiovascular work there too. Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. As you say, particularly as you get holding some of the poses, they're quite vigorous. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and even then, what I find, and even yesterday, and we've said this to other people, that when I'm doing coaching, I say, when you don't feel like going, that's just the time you need to be going. And even last night driving over to class, I'm going, I don't really want to be going here tonight. But on the other end of it, both by the end of the class, how much better I felt, and then even more after the class. And then this morning when I swam 4 kilometers in the ocean, I knew my body was swimming better, more free, in a way better state of mind, body, spirit, as a result of that yoga class last night. So there's something, whether you call it magical or metaphysical, something quite amazing goes on as a result of that breathing and that stretching. And again, as a result of spending that time with Andrea, I wasn't aware at all of the link between the vagus nerve and the breathing and the poses, working that vagus nerve. So it's quite incredible. So do you want to make some comment to that? Because I really, as you say, that article, I looked at just at one article there, you talk about that mind, body, two sides of the coin. Would you like to make some comments around that?
I think of yoga as being something that will help me to swim to an island or to climb a mountain or to do something that I want to do, so that people have different ideas about how they look at what their yoga practice is doing. I remember practicing with another practitioner, friend, a colleague, and he had hurt his thumb in skiing, got it caught on the strap, and was swearing away that he wouldn't ski again, I find there's another way to look at it. It's better to just use yoga to have more freedom in your life to do what you want to do, Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, these days, even more so than, when we started physical education for me in the 1970s, we're talking about, the dangers of a sedentary lifestyle and people talking about fight or flight response and stress and so on. It's even more important now because people can spend all day and night on the computer or playing computer games or watching television. And so not only what that means in terms of calories and aerobic fitness, but what that then means in terms of fascial sheath and ligaments and I suppose even energy centers within the body, what is not happening, or in terms of you guys talking about evolve excellence, how that actually stops the physical, mental, emotional, energetic evolution. Let me ask you this though, Nikki. What motivates Nicky Knoff? What motivates Nicky Knoff? What motivated her maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years ago? What motivates her today?
Well, it's to get on the mat and do the practice just for the quality of life, I went to boarding school in Geelong, and so I have some friends whom I've known since we were 12 and 13. And when I meet them, those who've survived, there are quite a few who've died,
Yeah.
their quality of life, most of them is abominable. And the only difference between them and me is yoga practice,
Yes.
There are few who are fine with what they do. They're farmers or they do gardening or they keep fit like that. But it's mainly about the quality of life,
Yes.
right
And
until.
I know it's you're not supposed to ask people their age. Am I? Are you happy to say roughly what ballpark you're in?
I'm 86. I
My
was
God.
86 in July.
Wow.
And yes, um,
Wow.
I could be
86.
better than I am, but I'm doing my best.
Oh no, you're fantastic. You're fantastic. So not only that, clearly, I mean, I'm doing the workshop with you Saturday afternoon. I'm sure, as you say, physically, what you're able to do as an 86-year-old, compared to, as you say, most other 86-year-olds may be flat out walking to the corner shop, let alone, bending or twisting. Let me go back to some of those photos and poses because they are. I mean, look at James there. What the
Yeah.
what pose is that?
It's a bow pulling posture. And so the toe comes to the ear, and then he shoots it forward to the other foot. There's several parts to it. The foot comes from a forward bend, and it mainly the foot that works, but the arm is supporting, I guess, making it possible. But it's the foot and the leg that are doing the work. It's intermediate posture.
Intermediate. My God, it's going to take me 84 years to get to that stage. But mind you, I note that you say in this article that literally the postures are almost more mind over body. You said it's like a key in a lock. I'd never heard that saying
Yeah.
before. Tell me more about that.
Well, I can't really add to it. It's how it works, how we have to work the mind as well as the body. People think we're just working with the body, but it's actually Ayurveda that works with the body, and yoga is really working with the mind. So when we've done a posture, we never shake our bodies or anything. we just are very still so that the mind can send blood, nerve, and lymph flow to the area and create healing, create a better body working better, you know.
Wow. Wow.
So,
I love that. Look, in yoga, we use asana posture to target specific areas of the body-mind complex. We use a specific posture, think of it like a tool, to highlight the area of restriction. Once we've targeted the area, we then insert our attention into this part, just like you would insert a key into a lock. So if you keep a key and lock separate, there is zero chance of opening the lock. Now only do you have to insert the key, but you have to turn the key in the right direction. In asana practice, we insert the key, the mind, into the lock, the body, on an inhalation, and then turn the key on the exhalation. The body naturally softens on the out breath. Oh my goodness. I mean, that chunk alone is just such fantastic knowledge, which, I mean, again, I suppose one of the missions of the yoga teacher is to share that knowledge. And I think you make the point here as well. It's only when you actually do it do you truly appreciate, which makes sense, of course, because you can talk till you're blue in the face to someone about this, but until they actually have a physical mind-body experience of it, it's all just theory, isn't it?
Yes, we often say you can read about it, you can talk about it, but not unless you get on your mat and practice do you really understand what it is, you know, how to work everything. And through the different postures, we reach different parts of our brain. So that's why there's so many different postures.
And just on that, coming back to your teachers and your mentors, where all this science, I mean, as you say, the Indians talk about Ayurvedic as life science. Where did they learn it from? Obviously, it's passed down from the generations and so on, isn't it? But
Yes.
this particular or spiritual almost relationship, that it's not the mat, the relationship with the mat, you guys talk about it in a very, what would you call it, revered tone, the magic or the benefit of this relationship with the mat. Do you want to sort of talk about that a bit?
Well, Krishnamacharya is the man who taught B.K.S. Iyengar, who's one of our main teachers, and he was world famous. He actually brought yoga to the West.
Yes.
And he has taught, say, famous people like the Queen of Belgium and Yehudi Menuhin and people like that. And it's definitely, when you get on the mat and work it all out, is when you really learn what it's about, you know. When we're in a class with B.K.S. Iyengar, the instructions are very minimal, and you really have to get on the mat and work it out. And
Yes.
I was lucky to have James beside me, so we nutted it out together when we were practicing, sometimes as much as 8 hours a day.
Goodness gracious.
My brother, who's a farmer, used to, you know, go out and milk the cows and come back, and lunchtime had come, and we'd already started at 4 before he got up. And he'd say, "Is there anything else besides yoga?"
And you said,
and yeah, there's Mr. Iyengar in his glory.
look at that. Look at that flexibility. That is just incredible. And so he lived till 95.
Yes, that's right.
That is, those poses are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Let alone some of the, goodness gracious.
Yes. Yeah.
But again, that's as you say, that's daily practice.
Yes, definitely. Right until the end, he practiced. And
Wow.
you know, he introduced us to it, but it's really a matter of going and learning and then spending time on your mat by yourself, working it out, you know.
Don't you love this quote? Yoga does not just change the way we see things, it transforms the person who sees.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's quite profound. So if we were going to then, let's ask you that question. So if we're going to ask Nicky Knoff, how has yoga transformed you?
I'd have a hard time to answer that, really.
That's why it's a deep question, Nikki. I'm going a bit deeper than I might normally go. I'm talking to an 86-year-old legend who's dedicated her life to this. So to have some reflection there in terms of how do you think it's transformed you? What would have happened had you not done yoga?
Goodness knows what would have happened. I also am a Vipassana meditator since 1980, and that is another form of where we sit still, you know, for the first course is 10 days, and you don't make eye contact, read or write, and you don't talk for 10 days. And so it's pretty intense. This was S.N. Goenka was the teacher. And so that too is something that's helped me tremendously. You know, I guess what I could tell you is that after the war, the Dutch government decided to give people who'd been in prison of war camp some money. I don't remember quite how much it was. My brother did get it. We had to go through all sorts of places to sort that out. And my brother got it because he was lifting milk cans onto the back of a truck and had some heart issues. So they gave him the money. When I applied, my last application was we started a school in Colorado, and I had to go and see this psychiatrist. And when I walked in, his two walls were covered in World War II books, and I said to him, "Oh, so this is your field?" And he was planning to spend 10 minutes with me, but 2.5 hours later, he was still asking me questions. And then he said, "Look, if I tell the truth, you're not going to get the money." And I said, "That's what I want, is the truth. I don't want the money if it's under false pretenses." And he said, "But what have you done to be so over this trauma, you know, because it's from the ages of when I was nearly 4 to when I was nearly 8. And I remember
critical stages, absolutely, yeah.
A lot of what happened. And I said, "Well, I practice yoga, you know." He was very interested in that. And I think that's what's helped us, helped me a lot, you know.
Isn't that amazing?
Or anyone who practices yoga, seriously, they can't help but benefit from it, you know.
Yes. Whether it be you're calming down that internal fight or flight, whether you're thinking of life as look, literally yesterday, I've got a niece who's just broken up in a relationship, and I remember both from the Buddhist side of things and possibly even Sadhguru as well, saying there's no suffering out here. Suffering is only in here.
Yeah.
And suffering is remaining attached to something, whether it be attached to a person, attached to a house, attached to a car, attached to a memory, attached to a story. And so part of that journey is literally letting it go, or the non-attachment, and as you say, mind, body, spirit, increasing that level of freedom rather than that sense of contraction and attachment and fear. So again, but I think she can only experience that by, and I said that to her, she's got to I didn't say get on the mat, but it's essentially, it is somewhere between meditation and yoga. In fact, I remember Sadhguru saying something to the effect of, if life's going well, do yoga. If life's not going well, do yoga.
That's
They
right.
both, it both serves a purpose. Let me ask you another deeper question here. What does spirituality or metaphysics mean to you?
Well, it's really something that if how we treat other people,
Mm.
it just shows then whether we're treating them with love and kindness, or whether we're treating anyone, no matter who they are. Um, that is really the marker for spirituality. Yeah,
Mm, mm.
yeah.
But coming from a place of love and kindness, which, by the way, Andrea will tell you, when she introduced me to the term Namaste, I just went, oh my goodness, what a fantastic concept. In fact, I'm going to dig it up because it's such a fantastic term. And I thank her on a regular basis for she said, in fact, I can't remember, what may have been you that gave her the card. I can't remember. She did say one of her teachers gave her the card. So is this it? I honor the place in you in which the entire universe dwells. I honor the place in you which is of love, of truth, of light, and of peace. When you are in this place in you, and now it's lost that spot. But do you recall that? Do you recall? Was it you that gave Andrea that card?
Yes, she says yes.
Ah, there you go. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for doing that. My
So
soul honors your soul. I honor the place in you where the entire, I'll bring up the screen because it's such an important, set of words, concept. It's just such a beautiful concept. My soul honors your soul. I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides. I honor the light, love, truth, beauty, and peace within you because it is also within me. Oh, I'm getting tears. In sharing these things, we are united. We are the same. We are one. What a beautiful concept that is.
So at our yoga school in Cairns, most of the teachers say that, say the whole
Yes.
breath. But when we say namaste, that's what we mean. And that's a beautiful Indian way of greeting too. So it's universal, really.
Yes. And so when you come from that place, as you say, if you come from that place where we're all one, then
Yes,
you do come from kindness and love and
yeah,
compassion. It's
yes.
beautiful. It's beautiful. So let's talk about things you talked about in one of your in the video there, in the YouTube video I watched today. Books. You immersed yourself in books at one stage. So, what are some of the key books that you'd recommend for people to immerse themselves in and around yoga and the yoga lifestyle?
Well, they're important books. We have them all on the teacher training website for people. There's Light on Yoga, which is B.K.S. Iyengar's book. And there is The Heart of Yoga, which is Desikachar. I've been lucky to work with Desikachar too. He was Krishnamacharya's son, and he was going to be an engineer, but his father said, just teach yoga. So he taught yoga too, and there are lots and lots of books that we recommend.
Yes.
And you can, there's Vyas Houston, who wrote about the Yoga Sutras. He was a Finn, actually. Evidently, Finnish and Sanskrit are very alike languages. Of course, Sanskrit has given words to every language.
Mm.
So it's well worth studying Sanskrit because it's the whole background of yoga. But that's another study, another 10 years, of working pretty solidly to master.
Yes, yes.
There are 2 villages in India that still speak Sanskrit. They say it's a dead language like Latin, but it isn't at all. It's actually used. We have some students who've been Sanskrit scholars and been there to those villages to brush up their language.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been talking of that Indian influence. One of the podcasts I listen to is by a guy called William Dalrymple and Anita. I can't remember any, but it's called Empire, and it starts with the East India Company and goes all the way through. At one stage, he's written a whole book on the Indian influence, Indian culture, Indian language. He said, the Indians could put the sail up and the trade winds would blow them across to Asia and other places, and then the next part of the year could they get blown back home. So this trading nation, but not only trading goods, but trading knowledge, trading language, trading, as I said, how can it be that one of the biggest Buddhist temples and Hindu temples, one is at Angkor Wat and the other one's in Indonesia. It's this massive Indian influence across all those countries. And so, as you say, Sanskrit is pretty much central to that communication, just quite incredible.
Yeah. Yes.
So let me ask you, some of these mentors and teachers you've worked with, and obviously these days you're in teacher training, clearly some of the discipline, not the least of which is, they live and breathe it from, don't come to me unless you're going to do 6 days a week for 90 days. But what makes a good teacher in terms of clearly living what they teach, but in some way being a great teacher? From your point of view, having done so much teacher training, what makes a good teacher from your point of view?
Well, it's you need to be compassionate and you need to teach the person where they are. We have to just teach each person individually. So privates are really a wonderful way to go. I had one man who did 18 months of privates and then did foundation and intermediate teacher training, because one-on-one, we're just working according to that person. But nowadays we have several people in the class, and we always say, teach the person yoga. So no matter where they are, that's where they have to start from,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, there's expectation that they'll get on their mats and practice and improve, and that's what happens. But if they just come once a week, then it's going to take longer. But if they say come 3 times a week and then practice in between times, it's amazing what they can achieve,
Yep.
And it's not only just being able to do the asanas, about the quality of life that they have then, and dealing with situations that are difficult in a good way, so it doesn't build up knots of tension in their bodies.
Knots of tension. So just on that, you've mentioned a number of times the levels. I'm thinking in terms of almost martial arts, white belt, red belt, so on and so on. So what distinguishes, obviously, discovery, foundations? Is it something around that a person can execute a certain number of poses? How have you broken up that journey? Or not you broken up, but whoever has designed this journey from whatever the steps are?
James and I have over the years, and it's a work in progress, because sometimes a student is practicing in advanced and they say to us, oh, we tried putting in this posture here. And so we practice it like that for a while. And if it works, we bring it in. It's not just us who suggested it. But to begin with, we were just taught random yoga, no
Yeah.
syllabus, no difference, etc., etc. And then we got all the forward bends, all the twists, all the inversions, heating, all the inversions, cooling. And we marked them in order of difficulty. And then we put them in, so there was a syllabus, because there wasn't a syllabus before.
Yes.
And so it's been much better. It's worked. We've tested it over the last 25 years, and it works, because people do the level one. It's like going from kindergarten to university, really, with the syllabus, with knowing. And sometimes it changes when we realize that people are having difficulty. For instance, we never had discovery before, but every 10 years, people seem to be not as fit as they were 10 years ago. And so we made discovery, and it's turned out to be quite a good pose. Say you've traveled all day from Australia to Europe and you land and it's nighttime. Well, if you do the discovery, you'll have a really good sleep and join the people as if you have no jet lag or anything, and you just join the people in Dresden, for instance. I did it 9 years in a row. And so that's become a very good starting point,
I mean, just on that, I know myself, when you've traveled, could be just only 3 hours on the plane or even driving the car, how I swim the next day and your body is just not anywhere near what it had been like before. So sitting down now you guys talk about that fascial sheath and what that then does, let alone who knows what is happening energetically when you're in a tin can with 300 or 400 other people. So as you say, if there's some kind of yoga activity to stretch that out and do the breathing and rearrange energy centers, then that's got to be a useful thing. So I think that's a great idea, having, as you say, a syllabus. So there's a structured pathway that people can follow, and obviously then you can then use it in your teaching as well. Which reminds me that your James story is a very interesting one, because you talked about your first husband, Mr. Garlic, and then you met James, and that whole issue, as you say, the yoga lifestyle, if the partner is not so supportive. So let's just talk about that, because you're talking about a commitment, a philosophy, a set of values. I mean, once Andre's gone, you need to respect your body, and because one day I just, in my podcast with Andre, I mentioned alcohol or chocolate, and she lit up like a Christmas tree. You must respect your body. But here, but if you're in a marriage or a relationship with someone who is not thinking the same way about their body or their mind, and the reason I say that is because, my wife and I parted recently. It makes life difficult. So do you want to just talk about that whole ecosystem and how you and James both changed your ecosystem? You consciously made that. I'm not suggesting to people do yoga and get divorced, but clearly it is about, because we talk about life by design. You've consciously made these decisions. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, because you've talked about it publicly in other places? So just share that a little bit, if you would.
So when I started yoga, I was in Tokyo, and I was living with my Norwegian husband, Jan Knoff, and it was a worry to him because, I was changing. The first week, I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped, not that I drank much. I had a wine with the meal, that sort of thing, but I stopped eating meat. And so it was a bit of a worry for him, and I was like you. I swam first thing in the morning, so we'd have he was there as a director for Cadbury Schweppes, and he was setting up a joint venture company for Carnebo with Carnebo, who are chocolate silk people, amongst other things. And when we were first there, I was his secretary. I did shorthand and typing and languages. And so when I went to Bikram Chowdhury, in my first week, it was dramatic. I just decided I could feel what these things were doing to me, and so I stopped. And it was a fear thing for him because he didn't have someone who would drink a glass of wine with him anymore, etc., etc. So over the years, we were 28 years together and had 2 children. But over the years, he was very against yoga always, except he was someone who'd grown very quickly as a child, and his muscles hadn't kept up with his back. So he used to get back problems. And then he'd say, Nick, let's do those things to fix my back. And I'd say, yeah, okay. But it's not Band-Aid. You have to keep the practice, do the
Yes,
practice.
it's not a Band-Aid. I like that. Yeah.
Prevention. Anyway, we'd fix his back and he wouldn't do yoga. Years later, I was in New Zealand from Tokyo, actually, in 1974 to 1984. And I used to go to used to be called Crippled Children's Center to teach yoga there on Friday mornings from 9 in the morning until 12, 1 o'clock. And and so I used to go there and actually get my students who complained about legs too short or arms too long, anything they complained about, I said, come with me on Friday. And after they'd helped me at that Crippled Children's Center, they never complained again. It was a good ruse, but we also needed 3 people to everyone in a wheelchair, it was very labor intensive, but it taught me a lot about, how to deal with problems and people like that. And they always had such a good time, they changed over that time. And I remember one of them saying to me, Nikki, what I like about you is you teach us like normal people. And I said, what's normal people? I'm not normal, are you? We'd have a good laugh about it, that sort of thing. And so I'm still in touch with some of those people, and I haven't been there since 84,
Wow. What do you think they meant? Let's just take that. What do you think they meant? You teach us like normal people. Obviously, it's the way you connected with them.
I think they just realized how some people are afraid of them because they're not walking like everyone else, and I just accepted them. I think I was talking to Andrea about it the other day, and you really see people's soul, not that they're in a wheelchair or frame.
Yes.
Anything. And
Yes.
it doesn't make any difference. You just want to, MS, multiple sclerosis, we've had big success with that. People who were in a wheelchair walking then with sticks, walking without sticks, and so on. It really works therapeutically too, So it's been very good. And the people who looked after them used to say, can't you come? It was on Fridays. Can't you come every day? Because they sleep so well that night. And so, And anyway, I had a full-on schedule of teaching 9 classes. I also taught at the Blind Institute. And we do a session in teacher training where we bandage our eyes and it's on the last day, and we do the practice blindfolded, which makes people really remember the program and also get another depth of it, you know. So
Beautiful.
when they were helping me at the Blind Institute, I said, well, we've got to work blindfolded too and just find out how it is, you know.
Mm.
Of course, they were different eyesight. You know, some had never seen before, some had accidents, and so there were different levels. Just teach the person yoga, you know, each
Yeah.
person is different. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
coming back to the ecosystem, what we're talking about was you're married, your husband
Oh,
was using
yes.
it as a band-aid. I'm getting back to the James, how James came into your life.
Oh, well, James, he was a marathon runner. And when he first came, you wouldn't believe what he looked like. He had a rounded back and tight hamstrings. And he turned up at yoga classes, and he started coming once a week and then 3 times a week. And in the end, he came every day. He got very keen. And how he started was there was an old guy, I guess he was in his 60s, doing some stretching. And so James said, oh, you're doing some stretching. And the man said, oh, yes, I was in India. This is yoga. And he said, you should do some yoga to James. And James said, oh, yeah, when I'm old, I'll do yoga. And man said, no, 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 you do it now. And then he came. We set up the first New Zealand School of Yoga in 1974, sometime around then, and or might have been 1978. And it was together with an Iyengar teacher, Mike Byron Mackay, and one of my students, Jim Wallace, and the three of us set up the school. It was really my husband's money that set it up to start it off, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were teaching there, and James used to turn up to the classes. And if anyone had told me then one day we'll be married, you would have knocked me over with a feather. I wouldn't have believed it. You know?
Yes.
Yes. I guess by that time he was about between 21 and 26. He
Yeah.
had a wife. I also taught his wife, but they split up. They had nothing in common. They had been together 10 years, and James just went for it.
Mm.
He was in insurance. He had been to university. He was an accountant. And he decided, much to his wife's horror, to go to naturopathic college, where I taught yoga there too. And to give up his company car and his three-piece suit and everything and just become a yogi. Well, she had materialistic other ideas, and you know, that was the end of their marriage. And then we were actually in India together, and I had to actually leave my husband to go to teacher training with Iyengar in India because he wouldn't let me go.
Mm.
He traveled a lot for his business, you know. On Monday, he'd say, on Wednesday, I'm off to London for 6 weeks, and I would look after the children. I was fine. I was practicing yoga. And so that was our life then, you know. But then in the end, when he wouldn't let me go to India to work, I left him he said, don't bother coming back. And I didn't. When I did come back, he begged me to come back, but
Funny about that.
I
Yeah.
had freedom. And so and in the meantime, that James turned up. And because he's 15 years younger than I am, and wanted to have children, I didn't want to go there again. My children were 17 and 18. So I said to him, no, you go to America and find your American wife, and sent him away. Actually, if I hadn't sent him away, we probably wouldn't be together now. We've been together 34 years.
Wow. Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
What a story. Because Andrea said, oh, Lee, you must talk to James because he's such a great business person. And I think that's him having a background in accounting can come in pretty handy, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, there's a particular, and not only that, where your teachers there, trying to find it, where on the website is you and James? Where was that? Which page? Obviously, there's the page. There's obviously, there's you two there. So he looks like a marathon runner. He's a marathon runner who can do yoga.
Yes. Yeah.
There he is. A whole lot of great stuff there.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story! What a story! So, but again, it's so important to have that well, I call it the left brain, that financial brain. If you can mix
Yeah.
both worlds, it must have proved to be very not the least of which, immediately when you said you guys put a syllabus together, I immediately thought of James's accounting brain, wanting to put some structure and system around.
Yeah. Yes, without him, when I sent him to America, I had people staying with me in Taunton and Queensland, and they were a couple, and they stayed with me. I fed them, even the avocados he ate weren't covered in the price. I taught them a yoga class first thing in the morning and charged them $50. My father, when he died, said, you're never going to get a hang of money. And so when James came back, he said, I've come back to look after you because this is nonsense. And he brought the sense into the business. Without him, it would have failed miserably because I was just interested in the teaching,
Yes,
and
yes.
not in the practicalities of life.
Yes, 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 yes. We say to people, you know, you're in the yoga business versus the yoga practice. You know,
Yeah.
you're in the yoga business, and therefore we literally say to people, not you're in the business, you run the business. And if you run the business, you have to also then be in the sales and marketing of that business, which of course at times that's anathema and a swear word to a caring person. No, I just want to teach. I just want to help people. Yeah. But if you can go broke doing that. So having those two brains or those energies, and the whole concept of you can't do it all yourself anyway. So that's a great story. Coming back to, let's talk about daily routines, just so that we go. I love hearing from people. What time do you wake up? And give me what your typical day might look like to the time you go to bed.
Well, when I'm at home, we get up early, not to a clock or anything, but it could be 6 o'clock. And we just do our ablutions. We have the neti pot that we do every morning, and skin brushing and that sort of thing. And then we get on the mat and do our practice. We also do some weights. James also, we have a very steep hill, Arthur Street, and if you look at his Facebook, you'll be amused to see how he's interviewed by a guy in a gym who passes him one day, and he gives an answer. I think when you speak to him, you'll have a good time because he's Irish background, American, and he's very good at talking.
Mhm. Well, we call it a mixture of Oscar Wilde. The Irish are such charming, as you say, storytellers. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, that's right. So yes, and he has a lot of information at his fingertips.
Fantastic.
Yoga
So,
and
how long would you spend in your practice each day?
Probably about 6 hours.
What? You do 6 hours of practice a day?
Yeah, I also do a bit of weights too, you know, and then every day we go for a walk. We live in a lovely area, Kings Beach, Caloundra, and it's we walk along we have many beaches, and it's always lovely to see the birds and to be in nature. If it's warm enough, we swim. And having lived in Cairns 25 years, we're not quite acclimatized yet to the south of Queensland, but we then have breakfast usually at about 12 or 1 o'clock, and then in the afternoon we usually go for a walk somewhere, you know.
You have breakfast at 12 or 1 o'clock?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, all right. That's
It's a weird lifestyle. I'm sure not many other people in our street are living the same way, but we can't practice on having had breakfast, you know?
No. Andrea's talked about the importance of fasting in terms of body's healing. Well, the body's got food in it, then it's the energy's going to the food instead of other things. So therefore the fasting component would be what's the last time you would eat in a day, and which would then take you to 12 or 1 o'clock for breakfast.
Usually we eat at about 6 o'clock at night if we arrive home in time from our walk. And then we go to bed early before probably 9, 10 o'clock that time, never later than 10.
Yes. Wow. And so you're teaching then, if that's when you're at home. So how often are you teaching these days? Obviously you've flown. Yeah. Tell me about your teaching and your work.
I'm officially retired, but somehow people keep asking me to come and teach, and I'm always thinking one day they'll realize she's lost her marbles or she's or something.
Yeah.
And they won't ask me anymore. They asked me to come back to Sri Lanka. I've been going there quite a bit, and I have quite a lot of people there. And they said to me, come one more time. I wanted to send Tomoko, one of my students who does really good work. She's been with me since 1990. I think it is 1990 or 1991. And she's always been there when I do teacher training or when I do privates and so on, so she can do just as well as I. And so I said, Tomoko will come. And they said, no, we want you to come. So I said, all right, I'm coming, but you've got to take me to Yala National Park to see the leopards down there.
Wow.
That was a condition that I came. We did go to Yala, but we didn't see the leopards. They're very, they keep away, you know. But we had a lovely time, and I'm glad I went. I had a really good time with them. They're wonderful people.
Absolutely. I have a strong connection with Sri Lanka because I do a lot of work with Telecom Australia, and a guy called Vijendran Watson, worked with Telecom to set up Mobitel Sri Lanka. So I went with Vijay and ran a number of workshops in a number of places around Sri Lanka to help set the team up, and the sales team and the management team and the culture there, and really the energetics of the place. And so I go back a long way. In fact, that was the early 90s. So in fact, they actually invited, sent a video to 30th or 40th anniversary, whenever it was such. I said, well, would that have been 30 or whatever? Anyway, it's a beautiful connection with those people. You make it. In fact, the ring I have on my finger is a Sri Lankan sapphire that I bought off Mr. Muhammad and the Intercontinental Hotel in Colombo. I had to wait till he finished evening prayer that night before we did it. But I went way up into the hills to Kandy, looking at, getting an experience of the place. It is a beautiful place, as you say. Now, I'm going to move into the home straight here, Nikki. Is there anything I haven't asked you or covered that you'd like to cover before we move into the home straight?
No, I think you've been very thorough.
Okay, all right. Well, let me ask you this. Firstly, what are 3 tips that you would give to the 12 or 13-year-old Nicky Knoff? If you could go back and say to you at 13 or 12, what would be 2 or 3 tips around leading your best life that you would give the young Nikki?
My goodness.
I'm going deep with you because you can handle it.
What a thought. Oh, just all the, if I'd known all about the yamas and niyamas, then I would have led a better life, been a better person, but I didn't get there until I was 33, 20 years later. Yes. Yeah. And so the yamas and niyamas are pretty well the basis of every religion as well,
Yeah.
And I feel very much that if everyone followed this, the world wouldn't be in the mess it's in at the moment, because everyone be too busy standing on their heads and doing other things. What's that?
Yeah. What is Andrea doing there with the shadow?
Switching off Nicky's telephone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Okay. And what does the future look like for you, Nikki, over the next, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? What does the future look like for you, would you say?
You mean the next 20 years?
Okay, the next 20 years. Yeah, well, okay. Andrea,
Yes.
she can't help herself, can she?
Goodness knows. James is retired. He says he's definitely retired. He's a lovely teacher. People have a lot of fun with him, and they have a lot of laughs. He's not as serious as I am, or holds people such a long time.
I've gone to his Facebook page here, and as you say, he's the yoga marathon runner.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you've really done your research, haven't you?
Well, there it is. Well, you said go to his face. His birthday September 9, September 10, is it?
September the 7th.
7th. So he's a Virgo. So he's a perfectionist anyway.
Yes,
perfect
exactly.
accountant.
Yes.
Well, what age is he there? Look what fantastic Nicky's in, as in condition.
Oh yes, it would be. He probably was just under 70 then.
What the heck? That is fantastic, boy! Oh boy, that's something to work towards. What a great specimen of good health.
Yeah, and this is Tomoko. If you go back a bit, that's Tomoko.
Oh, okay.
She's really she's going to be teaching some of the teacher training too,
Fantastic.
So we're very much wanting to pass on the baton, because there's a danger of classical yoga dying because people don't want to work the way they used to in the olden days, as it were, people are sedentary, as you said, and getting into their computers and their equipment.
Yes.
Very rarely do we get young people coming. There's some children's classes being taught by my students, but it's teenagers and people like that don't seem to want to work like this, or aren't interested at the moment. So I'm hoping that they'll carry on and keep it going, because it'll make a difference to the quality of their lives, of the people who are coming up, you know.
Absolutely. It's super important. I know at times my grandsons have gone at daycare. They come home and say, Grandpa, we're doing yoga at daycare. I said, perfect. Good. And then,
Yeah.
in fact, I'll get down on the floor with them and we do it together just because I
Yeah.
want to role model the importance of doing. I mean, they see me swimming to Rottnest and doing other things. So I try and role model for them anyway. But the
Yes.
importance of yoga and breathing, I mean, again, Andrea, with breathing, nasal breathing and slowing down the breath to help go
Yes.
to sleep. So even the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old, I talk to them about the importance of breathing and how breathing can, make us happy or, calm us down, more to the point. But
Yes.
mate, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Let me just go through my notes. I'm just going to look at Nettie. Thank you to Nettie. Is it Nettie, your Dutch friend, that's in her last word said do yoga?
Yeah, Nettie Krefeld,
Nettie
K-R-E.
Krefeld. Thank you. Well, let's honor Nettie for the great role, a catalyst, the catalyzing. We often talk about crucial conversations, how people's lives can change in a sentence. I've had water polo friends where the coach has said, you can either play football or you can play water polo. If you play football, you'll travel once a year over East. To play water polo, you'll travel the world. And he said, that one conversation changed my life. And we've had so many people where just one piece of advice, and sometimes as a teacher, you never know which piece of advice or what sentence does it. But here with Nettie's do yoga, what an incredible wave, what an incredible, we talk about processional event that she created in you becoming such a, profound influence in people's lives. Get on the mat, do the practice. I love that when you said, I was changing in that first week with your first husband. Yoga changed me. Meat. Let's just talk about that for a second. You stopped. I mean, I can tell you the same for me in terms of way less red meat, way less alcohol, almost none. You made the point around it. It made me. I knew how it made me feel different. As in, I mean, in my case, the alcohol, certainly trying to exercise the next day, or even how I feel the next day. It's just even 1 or 2 glasses, we say the edge is taken off you. Is that what you found in terms of meat and alcohol and some of the dietary changes, or was it some other deeper reason around I didn't want animals to die or those kind of things?
Definitely. When we skied in those days, I was 13, we would have to walk with our packs to Mount Hotham, for instance. There was no transport in, etc., etc. Those days, it'd take us an hour to get to the chalet in the snow. And when I stopped drinking, I really noticed a big difference in my fitness.
Yes.
And when I swam laps in a pool, it definitely made a big difference not to have any alcohol. Yeah.
Amazing. I loved your line also. Yoga, it's not a band-aid. It's not a band-aid. It's a daily practice. I love that. I'm just going to do that stretch because I got a sore shoulder. No. It doesn't work that way. And as you said once before, it's about quality of life and freedom. It's a mind, body, spirit, energetic freedom. So, Nikki, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to Andrea for introducing me to you. I look forward to your workshop this Saturday. This podcast will go out in a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks time, but obviously I'll send it to you first so you can clear it and take a look at anything you might want to change, which we didn't say anything too controversial, I think. But I do want to say thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure and an honor. I'm sure your students and your fans will love to get hold of this and just immerse themselves in time with Nikki. But I do also want to say namaste.
Namaste. And I recommend you speak to James, because I think you'll get a lot of interesting information from him.
Okay. I look forward to that. He clearly is a role model, looking in that great physical mind, body, spirit condition at 70. That's fantastic. So I look forward to seeing you on Saturday, Nikki. All the best.
Good. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, folks, here it is, Sunday, the day after the workshop. I spent yesterday afternoon from 3 o'clock till 5:30 in one of Nicky Knoff's classes, her workshops, and boy, oh boy, was I blown away. There's this 86-year-old legend of teaching yoga, sharing her knowledge, her insight, her degree of perfection, why movements are done a particular way, why the ankle or the toe or the foot is in the exact position it needs to be, let alone the holding of the poses. Just incredible to be taught. And again, thanks to Andrea of Perth Prana Yoga. It's just been fantastic. If you want to follow Nikki up, then I'm going to share her website with you. It's so much great work there. And I am going to be interviewing James, her husband, very shortly to get his insights and teachings. And again, from the business side of the yoga, because as I'm talking in leading your best life, I'm interested in helping people not just share their hearts, share their skills, but to build a business around it so that one, they have a good income and support their lifestyle. And as Robert Kiyosaki says, the purpose of the business is to be able to build it up and sell it and scale it. And here's a great example of James and Nikki doing just that, energizing, elevating, and evolving as human beings, but also energizing, elevating, and evolving businesses and other yoga businesses, and living out exactly as we talk about, reverse engineering your success, designing your life and designing a life that's a beautiful life. And so here are all of the different studios you can check out all around Australia and possibly around the world, including Andrea here in Perth, of course. She's just fantastic. So do search out Nikki, search out James, and really optimize your health and well-being, because as they say, yoga, the science of life, the science of health and well-being, and Nikki and James are great examples of that. 86 years of age. Go listen to this interview again, see it, immerse yourself in it, make notes, and share the goodness, the wellness, the unity of yoga, that inner peace. And by the way, I just posted today, I found 60 inspirational yoga quotes that I put on my Facebook page, which are, so many of them are just so insightful, going way back, of course, even to Buddha and some of the original teachers of meditation and yoga. It all starts with the inner world, life, an inside out adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Thanks again to Nikki and to James. I look forward to having an ongoing association. And again, thanks to Andrea here in Perth, my yoga teacher. I say thank you, teacher. Namaste.